The most important thing I've learned is that love transcends death. And because I realize that the what people miss about the military the most, unless they're a psychopath, it's not the killing.
Yeah.
There's the excitement and the adrenaline that comes with that, but it's the love. It's the bond you have with other men and women that you served with, that have your back, through thick and thin. If you dig down, there's layers. There's the numbness at the top. There's anger below that. There's hurt, sadness, and all kinds of unpleasant feelings below that. But below all of that's where you can tap into that love again.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and, most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started.
Well, welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, and I am Adam Hill, and today I have an amazing guest. I'm really excited about this one. He's a great friend of mine. We've raced together a number of times at different Ironmans. It is Mike Ergo, and you may see him from time to time at different Ironmans because he sticks out a little bit. Because he's carrying a flag with him, a giant American flag. And if you've ever run in a marathon, or any run, a 10K, a 5K, or run a mile, imagine doing that while holding what has to be a 20-pound flag the entire way. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But Mike joins us. He was born and raised in Walnut Creek, California, attended Northgate High School, and he served in the Marine Corps infantry from 2001 to 2005, deployed to Iraq twice in that time, and after returning home, he was able to find meaning and fulfillment in endurance sports and events. He has been involved in endurance sports and has completed 4 full Ironman triathlons so far, including the Ironman World Championship in Kona, Hawaii in 2017, where you may have seen him on the television broadcast that airs on Saturday afternoons and sometime in November or December. He will return to Kona in October of 2023 to compete there once again, and again carry the flag for the Gold Star Initiative. Mike does carry the flag for it in each Ironman in honor of the Gold Star, in honor of a Gold Star family and their fallen son or daughter. He lives in Petaluma with his wife and 2 children. Mike currently serves as the director of the North Bay Vet Center, a VA mental health counseling center for combat veterans and victims of military sexual trauma. I welcome to the show, Mike. That's a lot of info. You're doing good things in the world, man. Good to have you here. Yeah,
Dude,
thanks for being here.
I'm honored to be here, man. It's really cool to be speaking with you, and yeah, it's been fun getting to know you over the years. I remember the first time we actually met in person, I should say, was at the bike racks there in Transition in Kona. You're like, "Hey, Mike, it's Adam Hill." I'm like, "What's up?" And we both had that pre-race stoke going on.
Yeah, it was a stoke combined with nerves and 14 porta potty visits. Yeah, it was a lot. There was a lot of that. And yeah, I remember it probably different from you because I remember just I remember this 16-foot tall man in front of me, about to race, and that's at least what I perceived, just because I was starstruck by everybody, but from a lot of it just being racked right next to you, which was amazing, because I knew what you were about to do, and yeah, that was a memorable time for me, and it's one of the great things about Ironman triathlons and triathlons in general is because it brings to the surface so many really cool individuals like yourself and people that are inspiring. It's why I got into the sport in the first place. And I remember when we did that race together, I remember that, of course, one of the most memorable things was, finishing it myself, but I barely remember that. But what I do remember was standing at the finish line and kind of watching everybody finish, and seeing Mike Ergo run down the finisher chute with his eyes laser focused on the finish line, carrying the Marine Corps flag toward that finish line. And that was probably one of the most amazing experiences, was to be able to witness that. And I wonder, Mike, what was going through your mind when you were finishing the race?
Yeah, that and for those not familiar with it, it is the coolest finish line in all of sports, in all of the world, I think. I don't think there's anything that compares to it. Having Mike Riley call you in, seeing the lights, the music, the ramp up to the finish line and the chute, people from all around the world, literally, there cheering you on. And what was going through my mind there was a lot of things. I was thinking just how much my body had physically gone through. And, as you know, Adam, it's a pretty tough race. Yeah. So during the run, I started getting some serious pain in the legs. And, it was only my second Ironman. So I was, in that level of shape, and it had been only 2-3 months before that I completed it. So my legs were hurting. At times I had to walk a little bit, and I just remember that my mind went into a very, very dark place. Mentally and spiritually, I took a big dip, and all the things that I hadn't quite processed mentally and emotionally from going to Iraq surfaced. It just loops of killing, death, destruction, fear, and just this that sour taste in my mouth of what it's like to be in those situations, knowing you might die. And so I was trying to find anything, grasping at straws, and what I came to was that I noticed my legs hurt a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, that means I have legs, and that means I'm alive. Okay, I can work with that. I'm alive. And I it was like rubbing two sticks together in the woods trying to make a fire. I'm like, I can spark some gratitude out of this. and it worked. It took a lot of effort, but it worked. And eventually I was able to start running again. And that was around where the energy lab is, for those of familiar with the race. And
the thing it doesn't give you, by the way, it does not give you energy.
It's a lab where they take all your energy and measure how much they stole from you. And running back, I'm like, okay, I'm getting closer, and hearing the music, seeing the lights. And then the last part of the shoot was a culmination of relief physically, relief mentally and spiritually and emotionally, because I was carrying 29 names on my jersey, and that's the reason I started competing in triathlon, is because I wanted to honor the guys we lost in Iraq, mm-hmm. And the guys who had died since, coming back from injuries and other things. And so I was so worried that I'd let them down, or I was so worried that I wouldn't finish, or all the doubts came into my mind, or that survivor's guilt too. Like, why was I spared, and these guys who I thought were pretty stellar Marines had been killed. And so I said, you know what, it's okay to be happy. It's okay to celebrate this right now. And I did feel their presence there with me, and mm-hmm. it's what I needed to do something epic like an Ironman. I don't know about you, but I can't just go work out. I need to have some epic purpose to it.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, for a lot of us, that's what I found, because for a long time, I could never just work out for the sake of working out, because I would always just either burn out or get complacent, give mm-hmm. up. But what ultimately happens is, if you find that achievement-oriented goal, you're getting held accountable. You're being surrounded by other people doing the same thing. I mean, that's why Ironman's so impressive. And it sounds like, I've taken dark turns in Ironman, but for somebody who's gone through the experiences you have, and just to kind of shed some light for the listeners, prior to getting into Ironman, when you were serving in the military, I mean, you saw war. You were in Fallujah when, people like me were sitting at home watching it on television, watching this horror unfold. You were experiencing it.
It was an intense part of life. And, also the most memorable part of my life. Mm-hmm. There's a few key moments that I've had along the way that have compared in intensity or where I'm able to be fully present. It's an interesting thing, though. I was reflecting on this the other day, and as bad as it was, and as much terror and fear and sadness as there was, I wouldn't change it at all. I did a long walk in the dark after that, figuratively of succumbing to addiction and self-pity, hopelessness, and almost a form of nihilism. Just nothing matters. Everything is just crap. Mm-hmm. But for some context, that was the biggest battle that we'd faced in the country's history since the battle for Hue City in the Vietnam War. And it was a city of about 250,000 people. Most have been evacuated, and there's about 6,000 fighters from either Iraq or around the Middle East. That was kind of like a beacon to come, wage war against the Americans. And it was a big showdown. It's interesting, though, that I wasn't able to recognize this until after I stopped drinking, because I had an experience that did not fit with my paradigm of how the world worked. And if it's okay, I can tell you about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to put words to this ineffable or, indescribable experience, but I'm doing the best I can. And it took place when I was inside of a house. So what we were doing, we're going house to house. Mm-hmm. Basically, there'd be people inside of those houses waiting to shoot us, and we would hopefully be able to shoot them first. So it was the odds were not that great to keep doing that and stay alive. And
seems like they were in their favor when you're going in there and they know you're coming.
Yeah. Wow. So we were in a house looking for some people who had shot at us and ran away, and couldn't find them anywhere. And there was one small room next to some stairs and right by the back door. And my point man kicked it open, saw the people in there. They started shooting. We started shooting and yelling and shooting. And my machine gunner in the back took a round in his helmet. I figured he was just gone. And so I was feeling these rounds tick past my neck and feeling the heat from them even. And I just figured that it was the end. So part of me was proud that I was going down fighting with my guys. Mm-hmm. And the other the part of me surrendered to the moment. I didn't resist it. I wasn't trying to die, but I was like, this is where I am. I somehow miraculously came to a place of acceptance of whatever happens. And in that moment, I can only explain it as an experience similar to what people who have done psychedelics and hallucinogens have done, especially, I guess, DMT. And I could feel every single cell in my body. I could feel like I could see out of every part of my body, and I could feel my cells inhale and exhale, the hairs growing, and this is the weirdest part, and this is why I couldn't talk to other Marines about this or accept it for a while. The differentiation between who I was as an individual and who others were as separate from me started to dissolve, and I felt myself kind of expanding outwards, and it was just a complete connection with everything, and it was the most peaceful thing I'd felt. I knew that everything would be okay.
Wow.
And it seemed like an eternity because there was no time. And then it was probably a second at most. I came back in, and I was still in this battle, fighting, still shooting, and I was able to get the upper hand somehow, and through a series of exchanges with these guys in this room, grenades, small arms, fire rifles, and that we were able to survive and win. So am I happy that there was a war for me to have this, existential, life-altering experience? No. But since there was, and I was there, I'm glad I could have something positive come out of it.
Yeah. So how did that's an incredible story and perspective that, not a lot of people get that, especially in the midst of people that are trying to kill you. You find that connection, it sounds like, with humanity. How did that shape the rest of your experience in Iraq?
I think that I'm not sure how it changed anything there. Mm-hmm. My mind wasn't able to incorporate that into my paradigm of how I saw the world. And so there was a good part of me that had to reject it. And so then I had, this kind of mentally pushing it off. And so some cognitive dissonance, or just competing lines of reality. And when I got home, same thing. It was like, well, okay, but that doesn't fit, so I can't accept that. I couldn't accept it until I was able to break free from cannabis, opioids, alcohol, and just sit there and be like, okay, so that happened. It doesn't fit from how I was raised and what I know, but it happened. Right. However it happened. And so what do I make of it?
Right.
I don't fear death, I'll tell you that much, which is nice. The process of dying is still kind of scary, which I think is good. Keeps you alive.
Right, yeah. And is that so you don't fear it, is that because of the experience you had, or did you just not? Okay.
Yeah, it's because of both things. I've seen it. I've had the experience of, oh my God, I'm about to die, and that horror and fear. Yeah. And also just the feeling of everything was okay. Mm-hmm. It felt like on that other side. I know I didn't die, but just I knew that there was something larger at work. I couldn't explain who or what it was, but I knew that I didn't have to worry about that part. Yeah. And so it's informed how I work with people, how I deal with my own fears now when they show up.
Yeah. Well, that's that's a great insight, and I'd love it if everybody could hear that message. Because that is a message from different recovery programs and things like that there's a higher power that's looking out for us, that's not responsible for our recovery, but is there, that if we give ourselves, if we surrender to that, healing can start to happen. And so it sounds like, I guess at that point in time when you experienced that, you were still going through trauma. And then coming home, you had more trauma, so you weren't ready to really embrace it. But later you sort of embraced that, and that there was something larger at work, which is, and that's I know a lot of times we want to reject God, but what is something that if you could convey something to people that are in that traumatic experience, that maybe that they could grasp it, is there anything that you've learned that you could, that you would have done differently, or done to maybe embrace it, or help others to embrace it?
If I was to think of it, I think I needed the time, the pain, and painful stumbling in the darkness to be able to fully appreciate, being, I guess, in the light, or laying my burdens down and letting go of control of what I can't control. Like that Serenity Prayer says, because I was trying to control everything, and that's exhausting. Yeah. It's like sitting there wishing it's not going to rain, and it's raining, and it's just unnecessary suffering, optional suffering. So if I were to say anything about that, it would be that there are things we can control. There are a lot more things we can't control. And so coming to a place of acceptance, not being excited about it, but an acceptance of, okay, this is happening. Now what do I do? What can I do? What's in my power to do?
Yeah.
Just eases your life considerably.
Yeah. So just being more accepting gives you a little more ease of life.
Yeah. And I think the hang up there, like for guys who walked in our footsteps, Adam, is that we often think of acceptance as agreement. Like, oh, if I accept this, that means I'm okay with it. I don't have to be okay with it. Like, I'm not okay with the fact that there's violence, senseless violence in the world, or there's suffering and disease. I don't like that. I don't like it, but I accept that it's there. Mm-hmm. And so then I have more power to change what I can in my own life and influence the lives of other people, rather than wasting that energy, like I said, trying to prevent it from raining when it's going to rain.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I mean, is when we surrender is often believed to be something like, we're giving up, and surrender does not equal giving up. It's just the acceptance idea. I love the way you put that it's not agreement, because we don't necessarily have to agree with the world, but we do have to accept the way it is with the things that are outside of our control. Now, that gives us the freedom, really, to look at the things that we can control and then focus intently on that to improve on that. Man, that's like the very nature of that serenity prayer too, which is, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can. Yeah. And I love that word courage in there, because it implies really that we all have that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it does take courage, whether it's courage on the battlefield or moral courage to do the right thing. When our ego or our circle of friends might turn against us, or it's just going to be painful to do the right thing, that courage, it's hard. Because the thing about courage too is, I think I've spent a lot of time looking up these words to see what they mean. And courage is not the absence of fear, but it's the ability to walk forward or move forward despite fear. And that's one of the big approach. That's the approach I take with life, is I'm not waiting to feel better to do something, but I'm doing something despite the fact that I may not feel great. And so I think it's probably not his, but I know, hearing Rich Roll talk about on his podcast, of mood follows action. And so you can wait for the conditions to be right, and then like, well, I don't quite feel like working out yet. Or you can start doing something that's important to you within your value system, and hopefully the mood follows. It doesn't always, but then you're not limited by how you feel, which changes like the weather.
Yeah. I love Rich Roll for that perspective, and that's a good one. Mood follows action. And so within your life, obviously, when you experienced that pain, that trauma within the war, and you continue to experience that over the course of your deployments, and came home, and then you're I don't want to say fast forward or anything like that, because there's a lot in there, but now you're finishing the Ironman World Championship after finishing your second Ironman. Yeah. There's a lot to unpack within there. What was that spark that ignited that journey? I mean, what changed in you to go so that you kind of became sick and tired of being sick and tired? What was it that changed in you?
The big spark was realizing that I wasn't living within my values. I felt I was living a lie, and I'm tired of doing this. I was tired of doing it because I didn't want to live that way. And I'm like, well, I have a couple options. I could kill myself and then just get it over with. I could continue to do this, which is just mentally killing me. It's not sustainable. Or I could just, sit down with my wife and say, hey, look, I've been doing a lot of things that I've kept secret, and I've been drinking and using a lot more and being deceitful, and I don't want to live like this, and I don't want you to have to go through this. And so she thought about it, and like a day or so later was like, hey, I love you and I want to stay with you, but I can't if you're going to be like this. You have to stop using drugs and drinking. And there was a significant amount of fear. So I thought about, oh man, cannabis, namely cannabis. I mean, alcohol was the most accessible and thing I did the most, but cannabis was the thing that I would overindulge in that would free me from anxiety. And the thought of leaving that was, I'm like, man, what am I going to do? Just hang out and go to prayer circles and I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. What do I do?
Yeah.
But the love was greater than the fear, and I trusted, and I took a step and called a friend who brought me to a 12-step group, and it was another Marine who had the gallows humor I needed, rather than the pity of like, oh, buddy, you're going through hard stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, let's come out, man. I mean, you're probably going to mess up and drink and mess it all up anyways, and I needed that kind of Marine humor. And then eventually, after facing the tsunami of my feelings and realizing they weren't going to kill me, it was just realizing that working with a counselor at a vet center, the place I work now, to realize there is life after combat. Because I came to a realization working with her that I didn't expect to come home. And so when I came home, I didn't know what to do with myself.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I didn't realize I had that expectation, but I made it back, and I'm like, well, I was just partying every day. Like, I made it, and I didn't have any path forward mentally. And so once I came to that realization, I was like, and I started to feel a little bit better. Like, maybe there is something that's some kind of joy I can experience. And, also happened to get a dog who was very affectionate to me, my little buddy, and I have my wife there and my family support, my friends. Realized like, oh, it's okay to pursue happiness. It's okay to be alive. Like, I had to give myself permission to be alive. That's just how. That's where I was.
So, so you thought you were, you didn't think you were coming home. Was that coming from a place of, because you mentioned at the beginning, you mentioned survivor's guilt. Was it coming from that place, or was it coming from a place of just, it was so scary, so certain that death was all around you, that was what you were going to experience? What?
It was both of those things.
Yeah.
It was both of those things. Like, one, I feel like I didn't deserve it because people better than me didn't make it. So what right did I have? I mean, at first facing the parents of those guys was just horrible.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing I could do but apologize for my existence is how I felt I needed to do.
Yeah.
So there was a survivor's guilt. And then there was just, it did, coming to the conclusion that I wasn't making it home freed me up to do my job better and probably help me survive, ironically. Yeah. Because I was so worried about getting killed at first that it was hard to focus on the mission at hand. And once I let go of that idea of I have to survive, I'm like, well, I'm probably going to die. Because it felt like almost like you're at a casino and you just kept getting blackjack. I'm like, I keep living through these experiences, which so many close experiences, so many close calls to death. I'm like, how many times can you possibly do that before you bite it? And so just like, well, Funds continue. It's like the forecast does not look that great for surviving. So coming back, I just mentally I hadn't prepared that far. It's similar in some ways to when you're training up for a big event like Ironman, and then you don't have anything afterwards, and you hit that depression of like, what now?
Yeah.
Like my whole focus has been getting here and getting through it and getting to the end, and I don't know what to do now.
Yeah. Yeah. So that survivors, and how did you finally, you mentioned you were, working with counselors, going through treatment. How did you start to rise above the survivor's guilt? How did you start to come to terms that you're here and you have purpose, you have meaning to your life?
There was an experience I had at a Memorial Day event where I was speaking, and a woman who I'll be eternally grateful to, Yolanda Vega, who had lost her son, Jonathan, who was serving in the Air Force and lost him in the war. We were both speaking at that event. At the end, she came up to me and she said, "I am glad that you came home alive, and I'm glad that you're here." And even thinking about it now, I feel like I'm tearing up and I feel the goosebumps, because this mother who had lost her son, her only son, her oldest son, was okay with me being alive and actually happy that I was alive. And that was completely different than my perception of how she would feel about me. I thought she would be resentful.
Yeah.
But she basically gave me permission to be okay, to be happy, and to be alive. And it changed. It changed how I thought, and I started contacting the parents of people I lost and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. I still remember, your son." And so that was a big turning point.
Mm-hmm. Was that kind of what triggered the idea of starting to carry the flag, carry the names of your fallen brothers on your triathlon jersey?
It was a seed that was planted, but when it all came together, I remember I was sitting down, I was watching a YouTube clip that Ironman had put out about, it might have been the 2015 World Championships, where a woman who had lost her husband overseas from my area had raced in honor of her husband, and she did Kona and had his name on her back, and like it just this epiphany, it just was so big I couldn't miss it, that that's what I can do. I can, at first, to honor the people I served with and we had lost. I was like, I can bring purpose to this, because at first I knew I needed to do it. I felt drawn to Ironman and triathlon for reasons I couldn't explain, I couldn't understand, but now it makes complete sense. And so the amazing part of that is that after finishing Kona, I realized that in talking to enough Gold Star parents that they were suffering, but they weren't sure that they could connect with veterans. Veterans were suffering in the same way, and they weren't sure they could connect with anybody else. And a lot of times the Gold Star parents, they'd lose their son or daughter, and there'd be a lot of community support up into the funeral. And then afterwards, people didn't know what to do with that. They didn't know. They'd leave them, and they would say, I don't know what to say. And so they would start shunning these families. And so they lose their community too. And I was like, this can't happen. So I was like, we got to do something. Yeah. And I just remember like the experience of the people like you in the crowd cheering when I was carrying the flag. Like it meant something bigger than just me running. It stirred some emotions, and a great visual representation of carrying the honor and memory of someone. And so I said, I worked with my good friend, Lisa Anderson, and we talked about, let's do this for local people at these races and share that joy with them. Yeah,
well, it's incredible, and I'm glad you touch on that, because that is something that if I'm being honest is difficult when you see somebody that's gone through something that you just can't understand, like I cannot understand what you've been through, what veterans have been through, but I'm drawn to it for the heroism of something that I would never be able to do, but and the self-sacrifice. But I'm also, it also triggers that fear in me of what do I say? How do I care? How do I express this care and this appreciation without sounding like I'm just giving lip service?
Right.
And and so I wonder if you could speak on that a bit and on, how can we really support our veterans?
Yeah.
And the families.
The vets, there's always the standard thank you for your service, which some vets like. It feels it seems kind of like the standard thing to say, though, like kind of like, how are you? Fine. How are you? Fine. I've noticed, especially for Vietnam vets who usually didn't get a great welcome home, that I've told them, hey, welcome home. I'm glad you're here. I think is the safest, easiest thing to say. I'm glad you're here. And that avoids all political discussion, right? Yeah. And it avoids everything. It's like you're a human talking to a human, and you're glad that they're there. And I think the feeling of well-being and goodwill translates to that exactly. You don't have to say anything profound or say anything more than that, because it's really, we're listening to each other's words, but since communication it's somewhere between 75 to 90% nonverbal, we are looking at each other as our facial expressions, our postures, and then I think you can really hear when someone speaks from the heart. So if someone can hear your heart in that way, then the words are less important, and that is the idea that's communicated. That, okay, I'm literally glad you're here. I'm glad you're okay. How are you? It's something like that.
Four simple words and powerful words, but backed by heartfelt meaning. I appreciate that because it's something that that helps me to understand a little bit more and be a little more empathetic and compassionate in that way. And so getting I know we segued there, but I appreciate that segue because I just wanted, I want to help other people understand that too. And, kind of getting into the carrying of the flag. I remember seeing you at Santa Rosa, which was for both of us, our qualifying races, for Kona. Yeah. And, the difference obviously is you were carrying, throughout the marathon. I mean, the flag has to be 20 pounds, right? And not to mention the wind resistance and the awkwardness of carrying it, but just carrying that. And I actually remember seeing you fast forwarding to, I think it was 2018 or 2019, where my wife was racing and I was spectating. Right. Man, watching you run. This was the first time I've seen you in the middle of a marathon, but you were singing or chanting something. It might have and I wonder what was it that you were saying during the race, and what are you telling yourself when you're running during the marathon?
A lot of times, I can go through the swim and then go through the bike with just, I'm here, I'm present. But I really need it to come out during the run, that place of acceptance of like, I'm really here. And sometimes little bubbles of grief pop out, nice little nuggets to just be there to be released. And sometimes it's little anxieties or fears or memories I hadn't thought about in a while. So an acceptance of, I'm right here. I'm not at a finish line. I'm right here in this moment. I'm taking this breath and taking this step. And a lot of times I just try to connect as much as possible to the guys I served with and realize that the most important thing I've learned is that love transcends death. And because I realize that the what people miss about the military the most, unless they're a psychopath, it's not the killing.
Yeah.
You know, there's the excitement and the adrenaline that comes with that, but it's the love. It's the bond you have with other men and women that you served with, that you know have your back, you know, through thick and thin, will literally sacrifice their life to save you if they can. And having that kind of bond, when I lost somebody, I thought that was gone, but I was able to figure out and learn through some spiritual and counseling work that if you dig in down, there's layers. There's the numbness at the top, there's anger below that, there's hurt, sadness, and all kinds of unpleasant feelings below that. But below all of that's where you can tap into that love again. Mm-hmm. And so I can tap into that and be like, man, I got to serve with some awesome people. I had the advantage, like, instead of falling back into a trap of self-pity, I can say, I got to meet some heroic people. I got to meet some people that I admire, that I loved. And not everybody gets to have this experience. And I'm so lucky I got to meet these people. And I can tap into that. Mm-hmm. And that's usually where I am, you know, somewhere along the run.
Yeah. Well, that's a powerful point that you make there. Love transcends death. Because as you were talking about fear, sadness, all of these other emotions, I mean, and getting kind of below that, or digging down deeper into it, love exists there. Love is part of all of those things. And we can pivot from one to the other if we experience that presence where you were. And when you were running by, I remember this profoundly. Both times I saw you run by, in 2017 at Kona and in 2019. You just felt like a bigger presence than the human person of Mike Ergo running down that. You could feel, your brothers running with you, and that was powerful. So whatever you were doing, it was clearly bringing him with you, and that's powerful. And so what you're doing with bringing awareness through the Gold Star Initiative is powerful. It makes me proud to know you, Mike, and I hope can you share a little bit about that, about what you're doing there and what's coming up with the Gold Star Initiative? Yeah,
so the Gold Star Initiative, we find a veteran to carry the flag in honor of a fallen military member, and we get their family involved, that Gold Star family as they're called, to come to what you and I would probably call the most positive experience in the world, race day at a triathlon, especially at Ironman. Be part of that experience to celebrate that person's life. And so the veteran will carry a flag with a streamer that has their rank and name on there of the fallen. And the family will hand that flag to them for the run. And at the finish line, we hand that flag back. And it's that handing it to the veteran from the family is symbolic of them handing their trust over to carry that memory and sharing in that healing, and then giving it back to them at the end, saying, like, yeah, along the way I get to talk, like, I met all kinds of people that I still talk to today along the race course. I'm like, so you're carrying a flag, what's up with that? There's something I need to know about it. And I'll tell them, hey, this is in honor of, like Mick Bukowski in 2019. He served in the Marine Corps, with 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, and he died over in Iraq, serving his country, and his mother's here and his aunt's here, and I'm giving the flag to them and just telling them a lot about these people, and keeping their name and their memory alive. And so this year we're doing more of that. We have a few races that we're settling on throughout the country in the United States, and then my partner, my co-founder in the Gold Star Initiative, her son was killed in Iraq the year I was there, and I'll be carrying the flag in honor of him, of Nick Anderson, and carrying that at Kona and present it to her at the finish line. So it'll be the culmination of a few years' work and excitement, of building up this Gold Star initiative. So this is going to be a fun year. This going into 2023. I'm looking forward to this, and just seeing this grow and seeing where else we can bring the Gold Star initiative that will help, veterans and Gold Star families come together in healing.
That's fantastic. It's emotional to hear that. Just the power of the family handing the flag to you, starting at the run, and then and the fact that it's grown from you carrying the flag, to now multiple athletes carrying the flag.
Yes.
Can other people? So how do people get involved in that? In terms of how do they get involved?
Yeah, if anyone puts a simple search for Gold Star Initiative, they'll land on the Ironman Foundation's Gold Star Initiative page, and any veteran can apply to be a flag carrier and to be the veteran for the race, and then any Gold Star family can apply to be one of the families we honor at that race.
Mm-hmm.
And so people who want to get involved can. And for people who want to get involved, who maybe aren't veterans or Gold Star families, but want to support it, besides donating, getting involved in the race day, helping out, there's ways to contact the Ironman Foundation and say, hey, I want to help, and we can find a role for you. Because the third part of that healing, just like triathlon has 3 disciplines, we're looking at the Gold Star family, the veteran, and the community. And so bringing the veteran and the Gold Star family back into the community and connecting with them is so key. So we have a role for anybody who wants to be involved.
That's powerful. That's amazing. Well, if you've heard that, whether you're a veteran or a civilian or a Gold Star family, look up the Gold Star Initiative through the Ironman Foundation. See how you can get involved and support this incredible cause, because it is. And at the very least, get out to a race and witness this.
Yeah.
It's powerful to see. It's incredible, and you will feel the energy. I mean, you will feel you'll feel the power of that community, and that's hugely powerful. Mike, what I want to ask. You sent me a quote from the book Dune, and I have it here, so I can read it if I don't want to put you on the spot. But would you like to share that, because it's a powerful quote on fear from Frank Herbert's book Dune?
Yeah, and so it might be slightly paraphrasing this, but when I look at fear, I quote the litany of fear from Dune that they recite, that I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will let it pass over and through me. And where the fear is gone, I will turn the inner eye, and I will see nothing. Only I will remain. Mm-hmm. And just the illusion of fear. It's such an illusion. It's there. We feel it, but it's an illusion. And the most powerful experiences I've had are walking right through fear, not going around it, but going right through it and coming out the other side and feeling like, I did that. It's like I slayed that dragon and it wasn't even there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so powerful. I love it. And I've listened to the audiobook. I know I've read the book a while ago, but that one just flew right over my head. So I'm glad you brought that up to me. Man, I'll have to reread that. And thank you for sharing that insight. What are you doing now to take care of yourself, as far as, keeping that fear at bay, rising above it, finding your flow? What do you get? What do you do on the daily basis?
What I do, what I'm involved in right now, I'll tell you both the daily basis and kind of in the bigger picture. On a daily basis, I'm with you. I take that cold shower.
That's what I'm talking about.
Just get it over with. Like Mark Twain said, eat that frog first thing in the morning. Get it done with.
Well, I'm not eating frogs, but no.
He's like, if you get up and do that, I mean, you get that Ric Flair, woo!
Yeah.
Kind of feeling, and you're ready for the day. So that's part of it. I spend some time breathing, just settling into what's below the surface that's bothering me.
Mm-hmm.
I spend some time with my dogs. I spend some time like looking at like, what do I want to do? Sometimes I'm, meditating, sitting on the ground. Sometimes I'm so fortunate I have a hot tub and I sit in that.
Nice.
And I think like, what do I need to do? What's my next step? And recently for me, last year was picking up a weapon again and going hunting. And for the longest time, anytime I'd come near a weapon, I would start shaking and going into a panic attack. And there was still something that was a limiting factor for me. Because while I don't ever want to shoot a human again, I didn't want something I loved doing, shooting, to be something that I couldn't do or it would bring me to my knees. And so I had some experiences with hanging out with vets when I served with who got me into hunting. Back out in the marsh, feeling safe, feeling good. And I had to go right through that fear. And so that is no longer a fear of mine. It's still a little bit there. There's some residue, but
Sure.
Just doing things where I can connect to connect to nature, connect to the environment and with other people. Because what I found out about hunting is like, yes, sometimes it involves killing an animal, for food and sustenance, and then a lot of times, no matter what, it involves being out, being in the world, like really all senses involved in the natural world. And with duck hunting, I'm with other people and getting to know them.
Yeah.
So it's that connection there too.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm glad that you saw that fear, that you rose above it, and now you're doing it and getting out in nature. And I agree with you. It just brings you to the present, and everything that I've heard you say today has gotten back to that point of when you're feeling a lot of that, getting into the present, getting into that present moment, and accepting, and I'm really, really glad you found that peace, Mike. I'm glad you found that place for yourself, that happy place. And I'm glad you're here. I really am.
Thank you, brother.
And if people want to find you and get in touch with you and follow you, what can they do?
I got off Instagram a little while ago because I was trying to live the Insta life and realized I was doing things so I could post them. But I'm on Facebook again. I might be, there's one other Mike Ergo, and he's down in Texas. I'm going to have a word with him for...
That's right, you should. You're the real Mike Ergo.
I was like, come on, man. So I'm on Facebook, and I'm happy to chat really with anyone who's looking to really find their purpose. And if I can help them put them on their way, I'm happy to do that. So that's the best way. Or you can hit me up at Mike@Transitions from War. It's a blog and a podcast. And so you can check that out, and those are the main ways to get a hold of me.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mike. This is awesome. I'm so grateful for you sharing your story and your wisdom and your courage with us. And I'm looking forward to, as I know everybody else here will be, check him out in next year when he races in Kona for Nick Anderson for the Gold Star Initiative. Look up the Gold Star Initiative through the Ironman Foundation, and see how you could support it. And let's give our support to Mike. Thank you so much, Mike. It was great to have you here.
Thank you, Adam.
All right.